Okay. Good morning. So this man walks out to the street and catches a cab just as it's going by, and he gets in the cab, and the cabbie says to him, "Perfect timing. You are just like Frank Feldman." And the passenger says, "Who?" And he says, "Oh, Frank Feldman. He's a guy who did everything right all the time. Like my cab coming along just exactly when you needed a cab. Things happen to Frank Feldman every single time the best way they possibly could." And the passenger says, "Yeah, but everybody has some gray clouds overhead now and then, don't you think?" And he says, "No, not Frank Feldman. And let me tell you, he was a terrific athlete. You know, he could golf with the pros, sang like an opera star. I mean, he could dance like he was on Broadway. I mean, the guy could play the piano. He was just amazing what he could do." Wow, sounds like somebody really special. Oh, there's more. He had a memory like a computer. He remembered everybody's birthday. He knew all about wine and which foods to order, where to go. I mean, he could fix anything. Nothing like me. I change a fuse and the house is dark forever. You know, and so the passenger said, "Wow, this is some guy." He says, "You got it. You got it. He knew the quickest way to go in traffic. Never got stuck. Not like me. I'm always stuck behind somebody." But this guy, he never made any mistakes. Knew how to treat a woman, knew how to make her feel really good. Did not argue back, even if he thought she was wrong. His clothing was always immaculate. Shoes shined. He was the perfect man. I never knew him to make a mistake. Passenger says, "Well, this is an amazing fellow. How did you ever meet such a man?" He says, "Well, actually, I never met Frank personally. He died, and somehow I ended up marrying his widow." Come on, it's cute. So I'm going to talk this morning about this idea of your mental reach. Ernest Holmes says in our textbook, you can have what you become, or whatever you become in consciousness. And that becoming is a mental and spiritual activity. So we have often thought that, you know, if I could just reach out and pull something into me, then I would have it. But this is different than that. What we actually teach is that as you grow your consciousness, it naturally includes more. So as you expand from the inside out, the circle of you gets bigger and it includes more. Where I think we grow according to our reach in life. And if we have no reach, there is in fact actually no growth. And by reach, I mean our desire and ability to, my desire and ability to expand my consciousness so that it includes more, right? So we don't look at things like, how do I get this and pull it into my life? It's how do I make my life, my consciousness bigger so that this which I seek is naturally included in that. So you know, with regards to any kind of demonstration in the science of mind, it's all the same because it's one principle. That one principle operates through our mind. And what we think into this principle gives it form, right, according to our thought. So it doesn't just take shape. It needs our thought to give it form. So what am I thinking into the principle is what I would ask us all to think about today. What am I thinking into spiritual principle right now? Am I thinking love? Am I thinking life? Am I thinking abundance? Am I thinking supply? Am I thinking health and wholeness into the principle? You know, Abraham Lincoln said that great line about, "I believe that most people are about as happy as they make up their mind to be." But I think that's true with every area of our life. Most people are about as healthy as they make up their mind to be. Most people have as much love in their life as they make up their mind to have. Most people are as successful, as loving, as giving, anything, because it's all using the same principle. It's like, what are we going to give out and therefore allow back in? In one sense, yes, it's already all been given. Ernest Holmes teaches that God has already made the gift. The gift is everything. It's all been given. But we have to choose, specifically, we have to choose how the infinite is going to individualize through us. We have to declare something into being. So if we're to practice the science of mind, we have to see ourselves, I think we have to see ourselves as like a first-class being. You have to see yourself as the best there is. Because God doesn't make any junk, Now, this is not to say that somebody else is not as good as you. We're just talking about you and your consciousness right now. All right? So the club that you belong to is great. Everybody is included, and everybody is first class. All right? But my point about this is that we need to think of ourselves in terms of being a first-class being, because that, to me, is worth the best that there is. So when you think of yourself, you have to know that you are worth the very, very best there is. I was in the refrigerator the other day, and I don't know, there was some mystery meal there that had been there for a long time, wrapped in foil, and it had undergone some unusual chemical process where it had morphed into other things several times. And I thought for a moment about that. I did, honestly. I thought, well, I don't know, this might be okay still. And then I reminded myself, no, this is not the truth about me. I am a first-class being. I do not need to eat something of non-describable identity. You know, I'm bored. It's like, you're right, that's right. So roll it up into the trash, it goes. I'm done with that. Right? We have to choose, though. We have to choose. Specify how the infinite individualizes through us. We have to declare it into being as something. So if we're going to practice the science of mind, and I believe we all do, you know, we have to remember we have direct access to the infinite mind of God. We're part of the creative process of God. Ernest Holmes uses this term that we co-create our life with God. And what we think into that creative process, our thought causes to appear. So the life we are is not limited. This means there is no lack of anything. There is, in fact, in the mind of God, no lack of health, no lack of love, no lack of supply. I don't know if people still do this today or not. When I was young, a really great thing my parents, my mother specifically, did for us is that we had what was called a Christmas club. Did you ever have one of those? So we'd get this little coupon book, and we'd go to the bank. My mother would come home from work on Fridays, and we'd go to the bank. And when I first started doing this, I think I was about 8 or 9 years old, and I'd put 50 cents in the bank every Friday. Not a significant amount of money, but you know, there was so many teachings happening there on so many levels. And just before Christmas, I'd go to the bank and withdraw, and I would get $25. This was extraordinary. Remember, I'm 9 years old, 25 bucks back then. That would be like $1 million today, right? No, it would. And so I had to buy a gift for my mother and father, my brother and my sister, and my godmother. That was it. So I was smart. I could do that for less than $25, which meant I had a surplus. It was my first experience of overflow. And so the next step was that I got a savings account, and I'd put the extra into my savings account. See, because my mother, and I've given her credit for this, I've told her this was one of the best things she ever taught me. She said when I would do some work and I'd earn some money, she'd say, how much are you going to save? And I'd say, well, why do I have to save? And she'd say, you don't. It's your money. You earned it. You can spend it on whatever you want. But this is where it got really good, where it really caught my attention. She'd say, but an opportunity's going to come down the road. And if you have your own money, you can say yes to that opportunity. Now, back then, you know, the boys were always working on our bicycles. You know, you had a bike with fat tires, you wanted a bike with skinny tires. You had a bike with a long seat, you wanted a short seat. A high handlebar, low handlebar, you know, I mean, 3-speed, 10-speed, 20-speed, you know, I mean, we're always doing stuff. She said, you know, if you want a new bike and you have your own money, you can just go buy your own bike. You will have the freedom. And I heard that word freedom, and I'm telling you, it rang through my whole being. You know, it's like, freedom. I will have freedom. This is my ticket. And I grew up in a very small town. And I knew that this would be my ticket out of Dodge. And in that moment, I became a saver. I did, because I knew that was the way. If I wanted to have freedom, I needed to start to have a relationship with money, with supply, as an intelligent steward. I had to be a good steward. In fact, I have a brother who's 5 years older than me, and he was always trying to borrow money from me. And he'd say, oh, Mark, can you loan me 20 bucks? I know you have it. I know you have it. You know? And I said, well, when are you going to pay me back? Well, next week. Next week. He'd have something he was going to do to make money to pay me next week. I said, well, you know, it doesn't make sense to me to loan you $20, and you might not pay me back for a while, so every week it takes you to pay me back, you're going to have to pay me back an extra $1. I was smart. I was smart, you know? And so he's like, oh, I'll borrow the money from mom or dad. But my parents wouldn't give him the money. So he comes slinking back later. It's like, okay, I'll pay you $21 next Friday. And I said, and if it's after Friday, it's 22. And if it's a week later, it's 23. And I don't know where I got that from, but I really liked the idea that it was better to be the person loaning the money than the person borrowing the money. Where was I going with that? Hold on. I don't know. You know, it's because I just saw my brother, and so all of this stuff gets stirred up. But you know, the life that we are living right now is not, in fact, limited. It's not like God ever looks at us and says, you, that's enough with the health. No more health for you. You, that's it, you're prosperous enough. No more money for you. You know what I mean? That's not how any of this works. This means that, so what this means is that there is no lack of health or love or supply or anything we could have a need of. We have to start to come into an understanding that there is no lack of that. Right? So the supply of health, of love, of money that we desire is there. But sometimes my consciousness has yet to take hold of it. Okay? Jesus said, all that the Father hath is thine. Now that's a powerful teaching. All that God has is yours. Oh my God, it's all mine. So I have to recognize that I am part of the wealth and flow of the universe. And it is to me what I accept it to be, what I know it to be, what I believe it to be, what I affirm it to be. That's what it is to me in response. So basically, what do we want to demonstrate? Think about that today. What would you like to demonstrate in your life right now? Now, again, remember, God has no judgment on it. So whatever you want to demonstrate is absolutely fine. You know, you need a refrigerator, great, treat for that. You know, it's not like you should say, oh, I shouldn't treat for... God has no judgment on it. It's all a vehicle. Everything is an opportunity for us to increase our faith. The universe is infinite. Our job to decide. Establish something in mind. Ernest Holmes says we do not hold a thought. People will often say to me, going through the line on Sunday, they'll say, oh, Hal, hold a good thought for me. And I'll say, no, I'm not going to do that. And look at me and I'll say, no, I'll treat for you. I will say a prayer for you, because a prayer is a movement of thought along a definite line for a specific purpose. That's what Ernest teaches us. But to hold a thought, what am I going to hold it in? A box? A wheelbarrow? I mean, what am I going to hold it? I mean, that's just, you know, I know what people are saying. They're saying, think something good. Well, I can think a lot of good things. But if you want me to think a thought on your behalf that is actually going to really do some good, then what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a treatment for you. I'm going to say a prayer for you, because that prayer is a movement of thought along a definite line of good for a specific purpose. Ernest says, you know, we don't hold a thought. We're knowing the truth. We have to know a greater truth. What's true about God in this situation? That's true about me. What's true about God in this situation? That's true about you. And God is infinite being, and you and I, we are part of that. So we have to not let the negativity and the limitation that seems to be everywhere in the world around us, have you noticed? We have to not let that into our consciousness. You know, we have to say when we hear it, when somebody says something, just silently say to yourself, I'm invulnerable to that. That has no effect on me. That is not my consciousness. I do not accept that in any way. I am surrounded by the light of God. That does not penetrate my life, my experience in any way. All right? We say, but I don't have the money for what I need right now. I think it's important that we not put energy and effort into I can't afford. And people say to me, well, what do I say in response to that? Because I really can't afford. Say, I choose not to. See, because then you're in power. You're in control. You have some dominion, right? Because there it is, that power control thing again. You know, but you say, well, I choose DWP this month over these other extracurricular things. I choose to make a payment on my car. I choose to pay my rent instead. Because then you're deciding. Do you see that? Then you're the nucleus of the power. My consciousness of infinite wealth can produce wealth in my consciousness. My consciousness of infinite health can produce health in my consciousness. It's not so important to figure out how I'm going to create it. People get stuck on that very first step. How is this going to happen? How am I going to meet somebody? How am I going to pay off this credit card? How am I? And it's like, that's not your business. It's more important to create the consciousness of having it, rather than, oh, how am I going to do it? How do I become the consciousness that which I seek is the natural outpicturing of this now expanded consciousness? I'm already it. It's already me. We're one. I remember from my early science and mind training years ago, this is going back more than 30 years, I used to go hear Dr. Bitzer on Sunset. I don't know if some of you remember him. He had a beautiful church there. And I would go, and honest to God, to tell you the truth, I did not understand at least 50% of what he said. It was so over my head. But the guy was a genius. He was brilliant, and I knew he had what I wanted. There was something in him that was, how does it work? I think it's the light of God in us recognizes that same light in other people and seeks more of it. It's like on an unspoken way, like I showed up in his church and like I heard him speak and I went, boom, he's my teacher. I want what he has. And what that is when the light in us, because the principle is that the light is self-recognizing. So it recognizes it in someone else as say, okay, your consciousness can go this direction. This is possible for you. This is possible for you. So I have to know that I'm one with the principle itself. This was my point, that Dr. Bitzer used to always say, I remember him saying that. He would say, I am one with the principle itself. And knowing that the principle is governing me, and I'm part of that principle, and its perfect demonstration, whatever that is. So the power within us is greater than whatever demand we could place upon it. Right? The power within us is greater than the demand. And I think that just a simple way that we participate with this is that we reverse any negative that comes into our consciousness. And so what do? Instead, I say, well, think as you want to be. Right? Think as knowing that it is, in fact, the way you actually are. See, here's what it is. We have to stop thinking of what we don't want to be. We have to stop that. And we have to stop thinking of ourselves as not being what we desire to be. We're just going to stop that. Stop that whole conversation. See, because in our world, in my world, I govern my consciousness. That's where I can have dominion. This is good news for all of the controlling people out there. Right? There actually is a place where you can be completely in control. And where you can be in control, right, is in your consciousness over what you're thinking. It's true. You have to know what you want. Here's something you can be in control of. Answer this for yourself. I know what I want. And what I want is... Now think of yourself as having it, whatever it is, or being it, whatever it is. Think of that as a done deal already, because I believe God wants to be fully expressed by means of each and every one of us. God wants to be all that there is by means of each and every one of us. But so often we don't bring the best of us to the party. At the last service, I equated this to going to a potluck. So people have an opinion about a potluck. And I'll tell you what, that opinion is based on what they bring to the potluck. So I went to a potluck a couple of weeks ago, and I made a couple of things. I made really good things, because I noticed they were gone at the potluck, which was great. I was thrilled with. But I knew because I was bringing something good to the potluck, that there was going to be really good stuff at the potluck. And you know what? There was. There was really great stuff at the potluck. I didn't bring anything I ate. Other people brought good stuff. But if you were that person, and I'm sorry, I'm not picking on you. I'm not looking at anybody, I swear. But if you were that person who brings like napkins to the potluck, no wonder there's nothing left when you get there, right? That this is about how we show up. And it's like, if I want to go to a great potluck, I got to bring something great to the potluck. And that's true everywhere in life, isn't it? That's how the principle operates. The infinite mind thinks of you as the point where its manifestation occurs. You're the place where God is expressed like no place else. But we have to open the way. We have to open the way. That means keeping out the things we don't want, keeping in what we do want. When we see good in the world, we have to say, that's for me. I accept that. That's my consciousness, not, oh, I'll never have that. See, it's easy to be discontent. It's easy to be disappointed. That doesn't take a lot of effort. You're not accomplishing anything or doing anything fantastic if you just go around being grumpified about everything. You know, oh, I'm in a grumpified place today. I'm just going to find fault with everybody. Oh, you're so talented. Good for you. Do you ever see change on the ground? You know, you're getting in your car and you look down and there's money there. I do that all the time. I do. I was walking my dogs recently, and I found a beautiful, happy to meet you dollar bill. Just laying there on the ground, as bold and audacious as could be. Just like looking up at me saying, hey, take me. I'm yours. And I said, well, thank you so much. I think I will. I felt so good about that. Just the universe reminding me that good is always trying to come to us. Always. It's always, always trying to come in, right? Now, I am also that person who will make the effort. I know a lot of people say, oh, it's just a penny, don't bother picking it up. But you know what? If you don't pick it up, you're telling the universe, I'm not interested in money. And if you won't pick up a penny, the universe sees that, well, Mark is not open to his good. So I heave myself over, oh my God, and say, oh, all of this for a penny. But I think it's important because I'm telling the universe I'm open to my good however it comes. However it comes. And you know, if you can't accept a penny, you're not going to win the lottery. Because it's the same principle. And I know if you're like me, you want to win the lottery. And I do. And I will remember to tithe, and I hope you will too. So the point is, I think, okay, here's the principle of money trying to work itself into my life. And it's the same with other things. When somebody makes a gesture of kindness to us, it's the principle of love trying to work its way into our life. When you wake up in the morning and you say, oh my God, I feel pretty good. Yeah, I feel pretty good. It's the principle of life trying to work itself and expand in a greater way in our life. And so I think our job is to accept it, to accept all of it. You say, yeah, that's the principle of supply trying to work its way into my life. Come on in, you're welcome. I've been waiting for you. I thought you'd never get here. I'm so glad. I knew you would. I had doubts, but I knew you would. Oh, here's the principle of love. I knew you'd get here. I knew you'd get here. This is true with so many things. The universe is trying to increase us. Right? The universe is trying to increase us. And we have to be grateful for all of it, because all of it that we are grateful for is the preparation for the greater yet to be that God is trying to bring forward in our life. So this week, just notice how life is trying to increase you. And notice if you're saying yes to it, if you're receiving it, accepting it, being gracious with it. Let's pray. So we turn our attention inward now for a moment, recognizing that right here where we are, God is. The fullness and the allness of infinite, loving, abundant Spirit is present right here, right now, expressing in and through and as each and every one of us. So I claim this day that we are made in the image and likeness of God, that we are all children of the Most High, filled with all of God's attributes. And so I claim for each and every one of us that wherever we're ready to expand in consciousness, the universe absolutely supports that. That nothing is too difficult for God. That all that the Father has is ours, right here, right now. So we include in our prayer today our family members and friends and loved ones. Wherever they are, we know that God is present right there. That healing is taking place, that love is the order of the day. We let our prayer be a blessing in the world, so all of those things that pull at our attention, things that scare us or make us fearful of the future, we say God is right now fully present in that situation, as healing, as all needs met, as abundant supply, as harmony, as right outcome, as peace. God is right there. We bless our church, we bless all churches and synagogues and temples and mosques and ashrams, all paths to God. And I know, I'm absolutely certain that we are blessed by being together in consciousness today, that we all get raised up. And so with a full heart, I give thanks and release this word, and so it is. Together we all say, Amen.